All right, when you start Blender 3D, this is the screen that you see. Let's do a couple configurations first before I get into the actual tutorial. In this section of the tutorial, we'll turn this default cube into a player that we could control with the mouse and keyboard. We'll add jumping and a follow camera. But we'll start off by changing the render mode to Blender Game, and then I'm going to tap the N key and change shading to GLSL, and then N to get rid of that panel. And then over here under File, User Preferences, I want to change the interface to make sure, the input rather, to make sure that you have Emulate Numpad. If you don't have that, make sure that's checked. And then we'll close that. And then under File, External Data, automatically pack into Blend. That should be checked. All right, so another day, another time, I will talk more about what all those things mean. But for now, we'll just get going with that. All right, so let's start by changing this default cube yellow. If I tell you to click on the cube, what's going to happen is you're probably going to click with the left mouse button, and the cursor, this 3D cursor, will move onto the cube, but you haven't actually selected it. In Blender 3D, in order to select an object, you have to click the right mouse button. And so that's what I'm asking you to do. Click the right mouse button in order to select the cube. And we'll come over here to this section, and if you don't see this Material tab, I'm scrolling the mouse wheel to make sure that we can see all the tabs there. The one I want to click is a Material. Click on that. And under here, under the preview, under the diffuse, I'm going to click on that, and we're going to change that to a nice bright yellow color. And so now let's add a ground for our player to lie on. So we'll click under Add, Mesh, Plane. We'll do S20. That scales the plane out. And I'm going to grab this plane by clicking on that blue arrow. We'll just put it so that it's, a little bit under the cube. And I'm going to click on the cube a little bit and drag it up just a little bit, just so there's a little bit of space between it. I'm going to right mouse again to click that plane. I'm going to add a new material to that plane, and I'm going to change it to a nice dark, kind of a grassy green color. And so now we have something to look at. If I scroll out with the mouse wheel and scroll in with the mouse wheel, I can change the scale. If I hold the mouse wheel down, the center button down, and move the mouse, we kind of rotate like this. If I hit the 7 key, I get a top view. Again, I'm adjusting with the mouse wheel. 1 key is from the front. 3 key is from the side. Again, I'm just adjusting it a little bit. 5 turns on and off perspective. So I've clicked 5, and now this is an isometric view. Click 5 again, and it's perspective. We'll leave it perspective. So the view that I'm looking at, if you've been playing around with it, I want the green y-axis pointing towards the right. That's the angle I want. And again, if you click the 3 button, that's the angle that you'll get. And so we'll adjust it there a little bit. Okay, so now if I click P in order to play the Blender game, what I get is this weird white screen. I'm going to hit Escape to change out of the play mode. And down here under the shading method, we're going to change that to Material. And now when I click P, you can see something that looks quite a lot better. So I'm going to hit Escape again to exit the game view. And now let's add a little bit of functionality. I'm going to right mouse onto the cube itself, and we're going to add controllers so that when you push the W key, it'll move the cube forward in this direction. So in order to get the logic brick section, I'm going to mouse up here to the upper corner of this viewport until I see the plus sign there. I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to drag down and I'm going to make another window. I am then going to change this window from a 3D view to a logic editor. And now I have a space where I can add a keyboard sensor. I'm going to click key and tell it the key I'm looking for is W. And when I've clicked W, what we want is this actuator to happen. I'm going to click motion, and the motion, I want it to move forward in the Y direction, and I just know from experience that what I want is about a 0.3 in the Y direction. And then to connect these things, I drag a line from here to there, and I let go. And now, when I hit P, and the mouse has to be up here in this viewport, now when I hit P, and I hit the W key, my cube goes forward. I hit escape to get out of the game view. And now let's make it so that this cube can turn. I'm going to reduce the size of these bricks, scroll with the mouse wheel to get myself a little bit more room. I'm going to add a mouse sensor, change the mouse event to movement. And then over here, I'm going to add an actuator that's also mouse. I'm going to change the mode to look. And we'll keep those defaults. I'm going to drag another noodle across here. And then now when I hit P, W works as usual, but now when I move the mouse, my guy moves around. Now there's something that you might not expect. When I move the player up, we can, a little chitty chitty bang bang going on here. So let's exit out of that, and then we will turn off the Y-axis so that we're just using the X-axis. Now when we hit P, the mouse works as I expect, and the player moves around. Now there's one little problem, that when we go off the playing field, there's no gravity. So what kind of a game doesn't have gravity? Well, with the player cube selected again, I'm going to go over here to the physics tab. I'm going to change its physics type to character, and now my character drops a little bit, and there, it falls off. So, there we go. That's working nicely. Excuse me. Let's add one more thing. I'm going to close up these bricks. I'm going to add another keyboard sensor. Click into here and get the space bar. Over here, we're going to get motion. Change this to character motion. The character motion brick comes with a jump button, and we'll drag this across here, and now when I click P and I hit the space bar, my character jumps. And I just know from experience that a jump force of about 16 feels about right. And let's also, again, to give it a little bit more gaminess, add an actuator. Sound, I downloaded off the internet a sound effect. We'll go to where I've downloaded it. Game files, here we go. There we have the jump sound, just a little boinging sound. And we'll connect it so that when the space bar is pushed, not only are we going to move the character, we are also going to play this sound effect. And I'm going to change the play mode to play end. The titles are a little bit confusing, but play end means let the sound finish all the way before you interrupt it. It just sounds a little better that way. So get P, and now, yay, all right. And now we can jump to our death. Okay, so that's the basics of player motion. One more thing let's do is, if I click 0, I will see the view from that camera. And when play from here, well, what you want is a camera that follows your guy around. So go back to 3, scroll a little bit out here. This camera, I'm going to right mouse on it. I'm going to delete it by clicking X and OK delete. So I've now deleted that camera. We have no cameras in this world view. I am now going to get a side view by clicking 3, get rid of perspective by clicking 5. I'm going to click, about right here. We can move it later, but that's about where I want the camera to be. I'm going to add camera. This camera is pointing directly away from where I am right now. I want the camera to be pointing towards the y-axis so it can follow behind the player. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do RZ negative 90, RZ minus 90, and that turns the camera pointing in this direction. And now with the camera selected, I'm going to hold down Shift, and then I'm going to right mouse on the player, and then I'm going to hold Control and P, set object to parent. And now, when I right mouse on just the cube, you can see the camera follows me around. So since this is the only camera in our world right now, when I click 0, that'll take me to that camera view. I'm angled up a little high, so I'm going to click here on the camera object, RX. I'm going to rotate the camera. Now I'm using the mouse in order to rotate it. There, that's all right. G, Y, and I'm moving the mouse, so I'm moving the camera back along the Y-axis. RX, again moving the mouse. I probably want to go G, Z. I'm moving myself higher. GX, centering myself. GY, moving back. Maybe back a little bit further. Up a little bit higher. That's about where it is. So let's see where that is in the set. Okay, so that was a lot farther than I estimated, but there we go. That's where that camera gives us a nice view. Again, 0 back to that camera. And now when I hit P, if everything works, this camera is following the cube around, and it stays in the frame when you jump. Something that works very nicely, I'm hitting 3 to go back to the side view. With the camera selected, go over to this Object tab. Under Relations, Extras, click Slow Parent, and Slow Parent, change that offset to 10. And now when I click on the cube, you'll see what happens. The camera is now kind of attached with like a rubber band. And so we'll put the cube back there. This cube is, I'm just scrolling it from the side. Okay, so the cube is a little bit off the ground there. That's fine. 0. I'm going to click the camera, RX, and I'm moving the mouse just to adjust it a little bit. And now when we play, you can see when the cube moves very quickly, the camera, there's just a slight delay in the camera following the cube around. One more thing that can make this world look a little bit more realistic. I'm going to right-click on this lamp, the default lamp. I'm going to click here on the lamp tab. I'm going to change that to a sun, and that comes with a default shadow. You can see that sun is very bright. I'm going to change the energy to about 0.5, so it's not quite as bright. And there's some ways that I will show you in a little bit to make the scene a little bit more realistic. But now, when we hit play, we have an object with a shadow and a camera that follows it around. All right, so that's the end of the first video.